Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone, from wherever you're joining. Just checking. Balaji, all right, can you just confirm if you can see my screen?
Yes, you're
Okay,
able to see
great.
that.
Thank you. Um, so yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks for taking the time today. And so what we're going to talk about, one is specifically around, or rather, the main agenda is specifically around the topic of conversational AI and how we apply those concepts for in one of our platforms, and and in within within a BI platform, and also how do we really use this to what we call as data storytelling. For people who have worked on in the field of BI, and this should be a very familiar concept around and how do you really put together a whole bunch of metrics or or data points to convey a specific message, or which really helps us take some actions, and then it makes sense to the users. Just like some of the underlying principles around storytelling are very similar to how we normally go about in the verbal storytelling, or and methods, right? See, in fact, this particular one, this session, I kind of do this as a workshop. It goes on for like half a day to 2 days, and including in, I do this even in some of the journalism school around, where we really talk about more on the visual aspects of it and all that. But given the paucity of time today, I'll try my best to talk, or rather cover the different aspects. One is definitely the data storytelling part. At the same time, to talk about how conversational AI, and then the platform which we are going to talk about today, how does it really help us achieve this, right? So with this context, let me get into the presentation, right? So just a quick introduction. iLink Digital, and it's a family of companies with capabilities on diverse set of fields, and then each one of them, we kind of focus on specific areas. So that's where I come in. Within Purple Slate, we focus on technologies around conversational AI. Primarily technologies around voice, chat capabilities, and then a lot of natural language processing. That's what we do. And a quick introduction just about myself. So I run this company, Purple Slate, and so before this stint of I've spent a significant amount of my time in the Wall Street, especially with Bank of New York Mellon. There I was heading the data strategy, machine learning, data science practice, in addition to doing a lot of other things, right? So it's um, so I just wanted to start this session today, especially for people who have worked a lot on data and BI, something, what I would even call is it's a familiar scenes, in the sense, analytics efforts, or, anything around business intelligence and data warehousing, data engineering kind of, takes forever. And making sense of data, especially what I call is, the metadata, the data about the data. I think, it is really becoming a challenge. And third one, I'm sure, many of you would be able to relate to this. It's like there's just way too many dashboards, especially in very large enterprises. To the point that I always used to say, there are more dashboards than the number of people, and way too much of too many metrics, dashboards, and scorecards. And if one of the challenges, which we really try to address with self-service BI, it's like, hey, why do we, for us to speed up the time for information access, or rather, intelligence, by making use of many of the self-service tools, why? But that is also really becoming a bottleneck for different reasons, which I'll just talk about soon as well. So I think these are some of the problem areas, which I would rather, say, show you how we could address it, with the solution, which we are going to talk about. And I'm sure, none of you would be stranger to the chat GPT. There is whole bunch of craze these days, about ChatGPT, or rather, Bard, which Google recently launched in Google I/O and all that. Is this can There is a lot of talk about, can really OpenAI and ChatGPT help us solve some of these problems? Can some of those LLMs really help solve some of these problems around data and all that? So in fact, I just started with asking this question to ChatGPT itself, right? See, I think, one thing we really have to keep in mind is OpenAI and the LLMs are pretty good in handling textual, or rather, text-based or content-based questions. So in terms of information access, especially with data and all that, I think, it is still, while some of those capabilities could be very relevant, but at the same time, I think, um, in where when we talk about accuracy of the results being, and information security, privacy and all that, I think definitely, while AI, as I said, some of those concepts could be used, but definitely, these accuracy, information security and privacy do play a significant role, and for that, we really need different kind of solution approaches, right? So before I jump into the topic, I just want to set some context in terms of, starting with, hey, what exactly is conversational AI? Anybody who's already worked on it, please forgive me for this quick introduction. So just to, so it's the application of modern technologies. This is a definition which we tend to give. It's which that use primarily language as an interface, both text as well as voice, right? So the common examples could be your, collaboration platforms like Teams, Slack, or anything, or, chat bots, which many of us have used for years together. So many of them, or the voice transcriptions, or even the intelligent telephony, which are replacing, the traditional IVR applications. All these are some examples of, language interfaces. And just to set the context for some problem, I think, information access is still tough. How much of it, despite the investments in data engineering and data management and various business intelligence or data science practices and all that, I think, people still spend a good amount of time looking for information. See, when I say information, all these are within the professional context. I mean, of course, for anything and everything else, we rely on our popular search engines, be it Bing or Google or whatever it is, right? But within an organization, I think, information access is still kind of, it's relatively tough. And this is also something which is very relevant in the digital world, especially what we call as a big data fallacy. Digitization has resulted in so much amount of data, but what has really become the problem, which we're trying to solve, is looking for that, you can call it as the needle in haystack problem, but looking for that piece of information, which is that small red dot, that insight in a whole, volume of information, which we continue to collect almost every minute, right? I think that's what is really becoming that much more challenging today, in a big data environment. And this is also a very interesting graphic, which I like always. So the way, our life has become, whether it is, say, it takes this is an interesting graphic which I found in Harvard Business Review. 2 to 3 minutes to hail a Uber cab, or, the airline, for us to move from one part of it's all happening in few hours. But why should the information access, say we are asking for a specific metric, dashboard, or a report, why should it take a few days? Definitely the traditional BI tools are, definitely not matching the speed of our, or rather the modern day, information access speed. I think that's the gap which we really need to address. And also, in terms of talking about the reality of the data rich world today, so yeah, there are a few points, we are increasingly collecting very, very large volumes of data at a tremendous velocity, right? Still getting access to quality data is it's a challenge. And the third one is also something, which is very, very essential. That's what I would say, more and more, we have the need for momentary access to data. What do we really mean by momentary access? Say, when we go to the popular search engine, we are looking for something like, hey, what is the weather today? What is this score of this? Anything else, we just go and ask the search engine, we are getting the answer. Why shouldn't the experience be something similar, for whenever, we have a question, hey, we are analyzing a problem with, say, infrastructure spend. Suddenly we see that, hey, the storage cost for this month has gone up. Hey, can you, why is, how much is the storage cost for last month compared to this month? All these are questions, which we would have at that moment. For that we continue to rely on the traditional BI reports. Instead, why can't we just ask, right? And the other thing is also, I mean, the 4, 5, and 6 are also, one of the biggest challenges today. There are like too many BI tools, too many different tools to achieve too many different tasks. And then, of course, there is still question on the ROI for the data engineering and analytics spend, right? And in terms of the information needs, it's also something which is changed drastically compared to the way we have always consumed BI. Getting answers on very, very large volume of data, especially the one which I was telling about, the big data fallacy, looking for that red dot, the small piece of insight in very, very large volume of data. It's one of the need today. Can we just ask questions just like how we use the search engines, our ability to collaborate, explore, and take actions? All of this, can we really have a tool set, which with the power of AI, for the modern day? I think, that's the problem space, right? And also, I mean, this is what I was just talking about a few minutes back about momentary access. See, at the end of the day, right, even when we are consuming information through our dashboard, say, for example, you have just launched a new website. Okay, so you're looking at the Google Analytics numbers. At the end of the day, even when we're starting at those charts and numbers, it's basically we're trying to answer a question, behind us. It's like, hey, what? How many users did we get last week? What is the bounce rate? How many new users did we get this week compared to the previous one? All these are the kind of questions we have in our mind, which we try to get answers through the dashboards and metrics, right? I mean, I've just given few questions here, and ultimately, that's what we are trying to do. There is a cognitive work involved. I mean, in terms for us to interpret those metrics and dashboards, to get the questions answered, right? I think that is precisely what we are trying to do. And then, and more we digitize processes, and then we turn our enterprises go digital. These questions, I mean, to make the decisions more objective and take actions, we end up having a lot more questions like this, right? I think that's precisely the problem. Can we, when we have questions like this, why can't the experience be something similar to how we consume information for our private life, using any of those search engines, right? So if that is the need, I mean, let's just look at how it is there today, the analytics number. I mean, what we call as death by metrics. I'm sure many of you who have worked on BI for a long time would be able to relate to this. There is just, as I said, way too many dashboards, and while it's not about dashboards are not useful. Absolutely, they do serve a purpose. They do serve a very valid purpose. I mean, you are able to, with dashboards, you are able to standardize a set of KPIs, or key performance indicator relevant for your business. You're able to track it, or rather monitor it closely and all that. But at the same time, what is really causing this death by metrics is every user is different. Each one of them have their own information need, and for that, we end up creating either way too many metrics and way too many dashboards. I think that's where it really gets challenging, where one particular set of information may not be relevant for others, and then we end up creating a lot more of it, right? And the other thing is, I mean, information access is still too technical, in the sense, but they're starting from the query language, spreadsheets, reports, and dashboards. There is always, as I said, this cognitive work. I mean, when all I have is a question at the back of my mind, hey, how many open defects do I have? How much did we spend on storage last month? Show me the revenue, I mean, the margin for the last 6 months. If these are the questions, I really need to to my, for my business need, why should that be, why can't that be just easy, just like how we would ask anybody, right? And this one, a simple cycle in terms of how we consume information, right? I mean, when we have a need, we ask somebody or a source, we get the answers. The way, we consume information is, it goes in an iteration. Your answer kind of leads to more questions, and, till we have all the answers ready, and then finally we take some actions, right? But the two elements and within that box, I think, that kind of takes a significant amount of time. And, so that's the one, which is causing a lot more delays, and rather, it's really painful in terms of finding that source and then, getting that answer, or rather, what we call as the information access is still, very tricky, right? So to sum it up, the modern information access challenge, it's we feel it's not about the data capture and store. I think the unit cost of storage has come down drastically. Our ability to capture very, very large amounts of data at a very high pace is increased. Those technology have, improved tremendously. But I think the challenge is more around, how do we make the data available timely, in a timely fashion, at a very high speed. For me, I think that kind of what we really mean by that is the personalization. Every user's information need is different. How do we really take care of the information needs for a very diverse set of users in a timely manner, at a very fast speed and all that, right? I think that's the, I would like to call it as, that's the modern information access challenge. I mean, how we achieve it, there are a few things as well, but at the same time, at a very, very high level, I think, this is the problem we have, right? So what we're really saying is, when your users have momentary questions on your data, why do we, is there a way, we could reimagine the traditional BI route, of reports and dashboards and metrics? Why can't we just let them ask the questions, right? Like this, hey, if this is, say somebody in the insurance industry, it's a claims processing unit is looking at this, hey, what is the incurred claim ratio in on this particular product? Show me the usage on mobile platforms. All these are what, I mean, rather than trying to leverage, or rather, the traditional BI, tools, why can't we just let them ask this question, right? How, that's the whole idea, rather, or the approach behind this solution based on conversational AI principles, right? So just to put it here as an example, so if this is a question we have, hey, which region is really doing well, right? One way I could do that is, hey, the traditional way I've done, looking at a dashboard and then try to get an answer. Instead, can I really get a pointed answer to this question? Hey, it is this West region with the sales of X amount of, hey, $3 million is the one, which is really doing. And by the way, it's been going up for the, and see, I think that is a key difference between a traditional BI tool approach versus a conversational, in the sense, this question, I mean, it could be specific to me. I could be the regional sales manager for this West region. I'm looking at, this particular information for a specific product. I mean, the question could be completely different for somebody else. And each one of them trying to interpret a dashboard, why can't we just let them ask this question, right? And that's the idea behind this conversational AI product, right? And the second thing is related to what I was, talking about digital storytelling, right? Can we really let them tell a story with data, right? I mean, what do we really mean by stories? I'll just quickly show a demo of, of these things as well. Just maybe in under 5 minutes, I'll just jump into a demo. What do we really mean by telling a story with data? I'm sure people who have used data for quite some, I mean, would be familiar with this. I think, the at a very high level, the storytelling kind of falls into this four, major steps. It's like knowing your audience, crafting the message, compiling the pieces, or, you can even call it as, the storyboard. How do you really manage a storyboard? And then, right. And then finally, it's like the narrating the story. So I think the first one, it always starts with whether it is writing a story or even a BI story, or, a digital, storytelling story with data. It absolutely, it is very, very important to know the audience. I mean, as I said, the users are very, very different. Not the same set of dashboard or a report could be, may not be valid for everybody. So I think so it is extremely important. Say, for example, tomorrow I have a sales review call where I'm really going to show a particular effect of certain things. Maybe, I had a very successful campaign run, and then, we just want to do more. So now, if this is the message or this is the story which I'm really, who am I really going to present this to? Or rather, it could be the other way around, where I'm looking at the sales data and certain things are not right, and I really want the attention or help from somebody else, to take an action, right? So it's extremely important, just like, who's the story for, and then, and who are the stakeholders who really need to pay attention to this, or rather, to take action and all that. And the third point is also extremely important, in terms of what do they really know? What do they already know? And I think, this sometimes, it could most of the times, I have even seen the adoption of a specific dashboard or a BI report tends to be not so good is mainly because I always used to go to them, hey, why isn't this useful? The first question is, hey, you know what, I already know this. And this is not what I mean, definitely I need something else, So I think the current knowledge level of the user in terms of what do they already know is very, very important before we start building a data story. And how would I like to consume this information? It's like either as a metric or see, sometimes even this is a common mistake, where we might be producing beautiful visuals and then dashboards, but at the same time, if it is for the operations folks, they would really like to know the granular details, hey, for them to really call somebody or rather, take actions or something like that, right? So I think it is extremely important to know how the user really would consume the information, right? And what is the best way to even communicate? I mean, this is again a common mistake. Sometimes we spend a lot of time, putting together the fancy dashboards on an iPad, right? But for the folks, in the operations, definitely, what they would be handling a different kind of form factor. And so those things are extremely important, for us to start the story boarding part, which is like to absolutely know who the audience is and around these factors, right? The second thing is crafting the message. What is this particular story about? I mean, so what is that say? Say it could be a sales story, or it could be something related to improving the quality of a project or managing a project, anything. It could be about, hey, what, our infrastructure spend is going up. I really want to get some attention on, how do we could optimize the cost, right? All these things are very, very, important in terms of what is the message, we really, trying to convey, and, who are the audience, what issues and problems are we really trying to convey, right? I think, that is, and fundamentally, since we are talking about data story, how do we really back this up, with data, right? The second thing is, while you're doing all these analysis, there could be n number of metrics, which n number of data points you may have. How do we really put them together? Compiling the pieces to answer the story, right? Creating a storyboard. It's usually, the best way to do. You really need an application which helps you do this data exploration, because you might be looking at asking the question from diverse data points. It's not just about anything which doesn't give you the flexibility to look at the data from different perspectives. Hey, I may want to slice and dice this. I may want to look at different variations of trend. I may start with the daily trend, for the last month. Maybe, I would like to go back in time, or maybe, I would like to go farther and then see, if there is a pattern. All these kind of stuff for somebody to do this data exploration. I think, while you do this analysis, finally, there could be the few pieces which you would like to assemble, and then, for your to craft your story. I think, that is extremely, important in terms of not doing too much of it is also, sometimes it could defeat the purpose. That's why, there is this concept called intentional discard. Intentional discard is, you deliberately say that, hey, what, I think these are the key ones. I would like to discard these elements, and then, I would like to put it together. So I'll just show examples of all this, these concepts, while trying to build a story around it, right? And finally, it's like, the narrating the story. I mean, it has to create that wow factor, especially in data analysis. They have this, we have this concept called known knowns and then, unknown unknowns, right? So it's like there are certain, oh, wow, I didn't even know. Sometimes when you're doing this data analysis, there are certain specific questions you have in mind, but at the same time, say for example, it could be like, hey, show me the daily sales trend for the last 6 months, and suddenly you see that this is interesting. I didn't know that we had this drop on this particular day. I didn't even know. So those kind of emotions, which a data point could trigger, I think that is the success of a good analytic output. So in terms of there are some very popular can it really trigger these emotions, when somebody looks at the data, oh wow, I didn't know this, or rather finally now I know, okay, why this is even happening, right? I think that is the end goal of any data exercise. At the end of the day, it's not that we look at these data because we would love to look at it, but at the same time, one is being informed, our ability to take an action, or trying to understand a problem, or trying to do a root cause analysis on certain stuff, or even and making a decision. All these final outcome is what it's why we are even doing this, right? I think so. The data story has to make this happen, or rather trigger these or should attempt to trigger these emotions, right? So now, how do we achieve this? Right? I think, see, as I said, today's information needs, if I have to sum it up, it's like this. It's for a platform that delivers trustworthy insights. Sounds like maybe a bit utopian, but at the same time, I would say, I think that's the attempt of, trying to reimagine business intelligence today. Can it really uh, deliver some of these with the power of AI, right? So that's where we just want to introduce you to our platform, which is called Kia. The reason we even picked this bird, I mean, by the way, if you didn't know, so I think Kia is one of the most intelligent parrot species. They are found in New Zealand, and they are supposed to. There is a lot of research which backs the claim that this bird species have one of the highest IQ, and supposed to be intelligent board. So that's why we kind of picked this. So let me quickly jump into a demo right now. So our platform, there are two ways in which it's available. One is a simple search interface like this, and I can go and pick up on any of I do have quite a bit of data sets here. So say for example, I have picked up one thing around so what does it? What does this data have? It has this data on the different power plants across the world. I mean, so we just trying to do. Say for example, I'm trying to find out, or maybe build a story around how popular is the technology around solar, and how much power is being generated vis-a-vis the other types of power plants, and then and all this, right? If this is a mess, or rather example of a story which I'm working on, how could I do something like that? Say I'm trying to present to a bunch of folks, in terms of to show them how popular or how common solar power related technologies around across the globe, right? So if this is a data set I have, there is a whole bunch of attributes. So I can start with the questions like this. Hey, you know what? I mean, I have already asked a lot of questions on this. Hey, show me. So I just start with a question like this. Hey, you know what? Show me the plans by different countries. So it says, yeah, these are the so many different countries are there. If I have to do this, hey, you know what? There are like close to 10,000 power plants in the United States. This is, I mean, so now, I can just ask, hey, you know what? I am just I just don't want the power plants, but at the same time, can you really show it by type, right? So I can even view this data, say, for example, so United States, I can go down and say that, hey, you know what? It has, by the way, surprisingly, I can see this, hey, you know what? It has the maximum number of solar power plants and gas and hydro, all the other stuff. But the interesting fact could be there are close to 3,283 solar plants, but at the same time, in terms of capacity, it may not be. So what I could do is, instead of plans, I can say that, so I'm just looking at, hey, show me the capacity by country, and by type, not just the count of plans. So now, I can see that if I try to look at this, right? So it's like the maximum power generation capacity. See, in fact, now United States may have the more number of plants, but definitely, if you really look at United States now, in terms of the capacity,
Sorry to interrupt. I guess few guests who have joined later could not see your screen. Will you be able to stop sharing and share again?
Sure, I'll do that. Sorry about that. Let me. Can you see my screen now? Is it okay?
Yeah, I guess that is, we can see the screen. Thanks.
Great. Sorry about that. I don't know how much I missed. Um, so so again, going back to that, see, I can see that, hey, you know what, by the number, solar was, there were more number of plants, but actually in terms of capacity, it's the other modes, right? I think so. This is exactly what we really mean by, hey, can we really let the users ask these questions? So since I said, I'm really trying to build a story around solar power plants, right? So I can ask, so I can keep ask questions like this. Hey, you know what? Which so all, I mean, it's absolutely, you're not just limited by anything. You can just slice and dice it by any of those attributes which are available. Say, for example, I can ask a question like, hey, which country has the most number of solar plants? So now, it can provide, hey, you know what, United States, I mean, we just saw that, in another visual that, hey, 30% of the number of power plants, not by the capacity, it is by, by solar. So what I'll do is, in terms of what we call, going back to the concept around stories, right? So I can start with questions like this. Hey, you know what, show me the plans by country. So here is a metric. What I would say is, hey, you know what, I like this. So I would like to call it as, or, I can just give a name and then, this is, I can give a comment saying, hey, so, I mean, just for example, I'm just starting with something like this, and I say that, hey, by type, this is another metric. Hey, you know what? This also looks very interesting. I like this tree map. So I would like to add this to my storyboard. I can add it here. Uh, So I can keep adding questions like this. And then, say, for example, I may have another one, say, show me the top 5 countries, or rather, I wanted solars. So let me go and ask something around by solar plants. Show me the top 5 countries by solar plants. So this metric, I would also add it to my storyboard, and I add it here. So, right. So once I have created stories like this, I mean, this is where, I mean, it's unlike a traditional PowerPoint presentation and anything, right? So we call this as live stories. Why do we do that? Say, for example, now I have this storyboard. I can go and present this. So what you really see here, whatever we just asked, the best part is, when I play this, it kind of, what happens is,
solar power plants by country.
Um, it has both the voice as well as, the textual format, in the sense, these are not just stale dashboards with, which images and all that. Every time, you use this storyboard, it kind of fetches the data as of that particular time. And then, as you're presenting this, and that's, compared to static images which we might be using in our traditional PowerPoint presentations, right? Here, these live stories are kind of very, very I mean, they active. Everything goes back to and fetches the right data at that particular point in time, and that's what we really call it as live stories. In terms of, even when we are presenting it, you have an ability to bring the latest copy of the data and then show that as a presentation, right? So this is what I really mean, when I say, hey, how can, when we put together a storyboard, right? Uh, can I really, I mean, I do an analysis by asking so many different types of questions. Can I really put them together rather than, as in the traditional format, where I would copy an image and all that? Can my BI tool support this? Hey, what, I like this answer, I would like to share it with somebody. So you organize these with your own comments, and then, you can make this as a storyboard, right? So this is one example. Let me show you another one so this is in a different application. We call this as a chat, very similar to your traditional collaboration platforms, whether it is Teams or Slack or anything, right? So in this, say for example, I may want to do, this is on a data set called sales. Okay, so um, there is quite a bit of attributes on this particular one data. Let me just show you. Whole bunch of order information, sales data across different products. So, right? If I'm really, say for example, I'm responsible for the West region, I have a sales review meeting coming up, say in a couple of days, how do I really go about ask? So I can ask this, hey, what? So it just tells me, hey, what, the furniture sales in the West region. And then, it is also asking me, since it is more of a chat interface, this interface is more suited for a conversation. So it is also asking me, by the way, hey, would you like to see the results like this? Or say it is also asking me, hey, what, would you like to break it down by segment or, because I've looked at it. So say, for example, I look at it, hey, what, break it down by subcategory. So that furniture sales, it kind of, it breaks it down and then gets me this output, right? Now, I asked about, say, for example, I can say that, hey, I asked this question, so it gives me this number. Since it is more of conversation, right? Now I can ask a question like this. See, what really happens is you have an ability to continue a conversation with some context. Since we are talking about furniture sales in California, the next time, I just asked Texas, it took furniture sales, and if you really look at it, all it has done is you're still looking for furniture and sales. It's instead of the particular state California, now it gives you the data for Texas, right? So now I can ask, hey, what? So all these things, it's kind of, you can ask absolutely any questions. I mean, right, on this particular data set. So say, for example, I can say that, hey, what percentage of profit in the West region came from, furniture? All these kind of questions in pure, simple English terms, right? You can ask. Say, I'm doing an analysis. I'll just give you an example. I'm doing an analysis and I see that this particular one, let me go back. So I'm asking, hey, the West region from furniture, what I can now, I know that I am looking at a number and, hey, what, this, I know the person, the salesman who is really responsible for this. And then, so what I can do is I can just bring them, and I have invited few people here to this. And then, all the three of us can now have a conversation around, hey, why this number, it's like this, what is the cost for it? And that is the collaboration, which is kind of available within this chat platform. So in the sense, the common way of, the most frequent way, what we do today is, hey, we take a screenshot of this, share it in an email, somebody will respond in an email. Very disjoint way of consuming information. You have your BI tool, and then, you're also using your other collaboration platforms or emails and all that, right? Rather, if all of us, all the concerned parties, if we could have the conversation right here, and that's what, we've really done, in the sense, hey, what, somebody is be saying that, hey, what, this looks really good, what did we do? And then, if we have to, if something is not right, perhaps we can even take an action. Say, for example, I see this number is not right. And then, say what I can do is I can go here. There is a whole bunch of integration. Say, for example, I just want to assign an action item to somebody to take something, right? So I think all these, or say, this particular sales campaign did not work, and we may want to redo something else. What you can do those integrations. Say, for example, you could integrate your popular CRM tool here and run a campaign on this underlying data. So for all these whatever was under this query, for the 707 orders or for those customers, you could take action within the context of this particular output, right? I think say let me try to do another story around this here, right? So say, as I said, hey, I have an upcoming sales review call, so I could do something like, hey, you know what, I'm just doing 2019 because I don't think we have data for this year. So I'm going here. This is the data. So now I like this. So what I could do is I can add it to a storyboard. So I can call it as, and I create a story. So it just goes like this, very similar to what I was telling. Hey, so I could continue a whole bunch of conversations like this, and these are all I can add it to my sales review, and I'll say that, hey, it shows me this daily trend. I do not like this. I would like to switch it to a monthly. So I look at a monthly row of this, and in fact, I kind of like this particular chart. So I can even favorite this, or rather, if this is something which I would be visiting very often, I can even attach a tag. So all these very similar to the Twitter hashtags. You can now hashtag it, use search it for your future reference and all this. So even this particular one, I may want to add it to my sales review. So now I just have added few. I can go here and look at my storyline. The very similar to what I did. I can just present it, and then it's like these are my and the thing is, the stories would be available in both applications. Say, for example, I may go here and look at my, say, the sales data set, which I just looked at in the other application. The stories are what I think these are like shared across. I mean, we also have a mobile app. It's available across the platforms. You can definitely so it's like my sales reviews here. I can go and play the storyboard. It's right, whatever we just created just now, right? I think so. This is the idea behind, I mean, why, how easy it is, or rather, rather than consuming data the way, we have done today through, dashboards and metrics, is there a way, we can put them together in a very, very dynamic fashion for whatever the user segment is, right? Anybody who has, access to this data, and of course, behind the scenes, for all these products, one thing which I really wanted to undermine here is around, I mean, there is a very powerful, strong role-based access control, and then there is a security framework, which kind of takes care of how we handle PII and sensitive information. All those things are, I mean, part of the platform. But otherwise, it kind of opens up this capability for anybody to ask any kind of questions without the need to build, rather, custom craft dashboards. And once you have onboarded the data, absolutely, this low code platform kind of generates data on the fly. There is absolutely no effort involved in creating any of these custom metrics and all that, right? Maybe I'll just take a pause here. Any question before I just have a few more slides to complete where I just talk about more on about the platform. Any questions I can?
Please feel free to post your questions in the chat window.
Okay, so now, just coming back to the presentation, right? So that's what we just saw. Basically, this platform kind of lets you ask questions in very simple English constructs rather than um, you know um, making use of custom crafted dashboards, right? So what exactly is Kia? I mean, whatever we just saw, right? I mean, so Kia is our conversational AI platform. Basically we are trying to virtualize a data analyst, which can just answer questions asked in English. So at a very high level, what happens is the secret sauce is, our ability to convert English constructs, into a query across any database. I mean, we just kind of it works across any database and then a very, very large volume of data and then come back with answers, right? So this is at a very high level, this is what it does. How do we turn data, data in any format, any file format, any database? How do we really let users ask questions or rather, interact with data set and ask questions? That's why I kind of try to apply this concept, in the very, very first slide. Is it very similar to ChatGPT? It might look like it, but at the same time, it's what we're really doing is it's not really open algorithm or this is kind of this AI runs within your firewall, very, very, I mean, security first design principles, and more than that, I think very, very kind of very accurate results, not necessarily in terms of this could be the answer kind of stuff. I mean, whenever we are using data for actions, I mean, definitely accuracy is one of the key factors. So that's where the experience, or rather, the underlying concepts are very similar to a generative AI technology, but the way we achieve it is, it's different, right? So very simple steps. How do we? It's we have a low code platform which takes data, and then Kia kind of lets the users ask questions. It is just you just need to onboard the data, or rather train Kia on the data set, and then after that it lets you ask questions. Um, support all kinds of database, not just the few which you see here. It's absolutely any database. Most of the common, or rather, popular databases, file format, CSV, XML, Parquet, Avro, anything. I think all these file formats, and you can use that to train Kia. And also, I mean, it's not just about data in a typical organization. It just grows. Whether you can the data can flow through real-time streams, framework like Event Hub, Kafka, and all that, or it can be microbatch based on different schedules, on request, and all that. So it's like the data could be fed to the platform, on these basis, and then the platform would continue to learn and then provide the answers, right? Omni-channel platform. I just showed you a couple of them, the search and chat application. And of course, there is also a mobile app. This is especially the one on iPad is this the most popular ones, which we have, given to our customers. It's especially, it's like this, in a meeting scenario, in conference, you have this application available on a iPad. You can just literally, just like how we would converse with others, you can ask these questions to this invoice. And then the platform kind of responds, right? So yeah, I mean, I just talked about the omni-channel ecosystem. The studio kind of helps you more like the low-code platform for you to set it up. The other ones are all like for you to consume the data. The chat widget, which I showed you, the search widget, as well as the mobile app, right? So high level, some feature summary. It's completely white label, by the way. So even though Kia is a generic name, our users, or rather, our customers kind of call it differently. There is Ginger, Twinkle, Parrot, Erika, whatnot. I mean, all these kind of names. So it is a completely white labeled application. It can run, absolutely. We bring the code, it runs within your firewall. That way, none of the data goes out. I mean, we do offer a SaaS solution as well, but definitely for large enterprises, it runs, within your firewall. So all the, I mean, whatever you see there, I think those are some of the design principles, which we have within the framework. How does it really help? It's very, very simple. It's like the time to market. I mean, our fundamental goal is, hey, what can we really stop, rather, producing dashboards? Rather, why don't we just train this application on a data set, and then let users. It is completely free format and dynamic. Why do we really need to custom craft metrics for a dashboard and all that? I think that's the whole idea behind it. And whatever you saw there, for the visualizations or the output which comes out for every question, it is absolutely, it is dynamic. It is only limited by the number of attributes, which the application is exposed to. So that's the whole idea behind it. Hey, what can we really reduce the time to market, as well as save a lot on the application development costs, in building dashboards and metrics on a on ongoing basis, right? Again, under the summary response summary, it's as I said, it's completely white labeled. You can ask questions in English constructs, voice as well as text interface, or whatnot, right? So at a summary, this is what it's Kia does. It's the goal is to can we really simplify data access to everyone in the organization, right? It's built on Azure. Absolutely, it makes use of all the components, different components within Azure, speech services to language understanding to and of course this can also be made available as a bot in Microsoft Teams. Having said this, the platform is vendor cloud neutral, in the sense majority of our implementations is in Azure, but it can run on any other. Absolutely, it's Dockerized, and then it can run on any vendor cloud platform, AWS, GCP, whatnot, right? Some examples for where this could be used, in terms of use case themes. See, as I said, simplified access, just like the popular search engine, you could embed this search widget within any in any of your applications. It's like this search widget, whatever you see here. You on a data context of a specific data set or a whole bunch of data sets, you can expose this to any of your applications. So say, for example, there are so many very simple use cases, like say I can go back to say this is our the usage of our application itself, it's exposed through Kia. So I can ask questions like very simple questions like this. Hey, what, show me. So it says, 260, I mean, by just breaks it down by this, and I can say, hey, which is. So it says, what, Chrome, nearly 87% of the questions come from Chrome. Any kind of data, absolutely, it doesn't matter. In fact, for this, it logs in, taps into our usage logs. Say, for example, see, I have another example here. Is say, let me go to the defects. Yeah, so this one, we make use of Notion internally. So this just taps into our the Notion database, as whatever we use for our application, Jira, Trello, anything, it can just tap into any of those applications as well, not necessarily the databases, and it can answer those questions rather than say I mean, the scenarios could be something like this. Say you are in front of a customer, you're in a meeting, someone is complaining about bad quality at this moment. Hey, rather than you looking at some reports up, if you do not have that piece of information, what we normally do, we just call somebody. Rather, in the mobile app or in your computer, can we just ask this question? Hey, someone says, that the quality is bad. How many open defects do we have for this customer? Right? Show me how is this defect trending? All these kind of questions for that particular moment. You can use a platform like this, and that's where it really comes very, very handy. As I said, it's not just the database. It can also tap into any APIs, any application, SaaS application it can listen to, and it can also respond, to those data. So one of the simple, I mean, in fact, this is the most common use cases, we have seen across our customers. It's like putting a very simple search analytics interface. The second thing is, as I said, it's for a mobile platform. For the momentary information, it's whether you're in the airport or meeting a customer, you can just use, just like how we would chat with a friend. You can chat with Kia and then ask those questions. Very simple chat interface. Collaborate and data, I showed you the chat interface, especially when we have a team of people working on something, there is a significant amount of time that is wasted in communication. Hey, you look at a piece of data, you share it with somebody, and then they disagree. So this interaction kind of happens in a very fragmented fashion, through emails and all that. Instead, why don't we bring the users to the platform so that, we kind of work on a problem and then you look at the same piece of information and take actions. I think that's the whole idea behind bringing in collaboration on data using the chat interface. Actionable insights, I showed an example. Absolutely, most of the stack, you can, anything which is exposed as an API, you can integrate with this platform. We do have a very powerful reverse ETL framework, which will let you take the data into any of your business applications. So there is a whole bunch of integrations which are available out of the box, but at the same time, anything which is even proprietary, any of those enterprise applications could be plugged in, within this, within Kia. This is again another very popular use case we have done in a few places, which is the traditional legacy reports. It could be a lot of SSRS reports or any the traditional BI reports like MicroStrategy, Web Focus, and all that. Rather than custom crafting reports, here you still have an ability to say, if this is the data I have, I can just go here. This is I can let it download. Absolutely, as I said, whenever I say download, definitely can assume we applying the right data governance principles, information security principles. For any of these questions, for any date range, any filter range, somebody, they can just run a report like this and do their use it for whatever purpose it is, right? I think that's one of way I've seen a lot of companies getting rid of the traditional reporting and then migrating to a platform like this. Happy customers, definitely, we have some very, very good installations in some of these places and for like few years now, right? And as I said, definitely, would be more than happy to get, it's our platform kind of simplifies this whole journey. Definitely, we'd be more than happy to work with you if there is interest, on any free POCs and trials and or even, uh, assessment and consultation, right? So feel free to reach out to us and yeah, exactly, sharp on time.